The night sky was too quiet for Captain Sarah Reeves. She sat on the roof of her small workshop on the edge of a desert colony world, staring up at the stars. They shimmered faintly in the distance, cold, endless, and ancient. She often thought they were watching her, remembering her, whispering the things she wanted to forget. Once, long ago, she had been a soldier among those stars. Sarah had fought in the Orion conflict, one of the bloodiest wars in human history. She had seen planets burn and cities turned into dust clouds. She had seen soldiers become legends and legends become bones. But what haunted her most wasn't what she saw. It was who she lost. The Valkor. They were the aliens humanity had once feared, then fought beside. Towering black-armored warriors with eyes that glowed like molten gold. They had no mouths to smile with, but their eyes told stories of honor, loyalty, and strange, fierce love for battle. Sarah had fought beside them for 2 years, leading a joint strike unit made of both humans and Valkor soldiers. Together they had survived battles no one else could. She remembered how the ground used to shake under their feet when they marched, and how their deep voices carried through the comms, calm, unshakable, and somehow comforting in the chaos. But the war ended 5 years ago. Now, there were no battlefields, no orders, no roaring alien allies at her side. Only silence. Sarah lived alone in a half-broken hangar on the outskirts of the colony of Etria 9. The people there called her Captain, though she'd left that rank behind long ago. She spent her days fixing ships that no one else wanted to fix. Haulers, cargo pods, small freighters that limped back from asteroid runs. Machines were easier than people. They didn't talk. They didn't bleed. They didn't leave, but some nights, like this one, when the wind was still and the sky looked too big, her thoughts drifted back to the battlefield, to the smoke, the fire, and him, Korin. He had been her Valkor second-in-command, her protector, her friend. Maybe more than that, though she never said it aloud. During one desperate fight, when her squad was ambushed and outnumbered, Korin had thrown himself into the path of a plasma cannon to shield her. She'd watched his armor shatter, his body fall, his light dim, and then he was gone. They never found his remains. The Valkor said he died with honor, and their customs forbade recovery of fallen warriors. Sarah had argued, begged, cursed, but in the end, she'd been forced to leave his body behind. That day had ended her war. Since then, she'd built her quiet life piece by piece, one broken engine at a time. Her hands stayed busy, her mind stayed numb, and the ghosts stayed mostly quiet. Mostly. But tonight they were louder. The air felt heavier, charged with something she couldn't name. The horizon shimmered faintly, though there was no storm. She sighed, running a hand through her short dark hair. "You're getting old, Reeves," she muttered to herself. Seeing ghosts again? Her small workshop below was dimly lit, a few power lamps flickering on old solar cells. The walls were lined with tools, parts, and scraps of ships she had cannibalized for years. On the far side hung an old rifle, a human plasma weapon scarred and dull from age. She hadn't touched it in years, she didn't want to. War had taken enough from her still. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The stars above flickered again just for a moment, but it made her heart skip. She leaned forward, squinting. Maybe a meteor, maybe debris, maybe nothing. But her gut told her otherwise. Sarah Reeves had learned to trust that gut. It had saved her life more than once. She stood, brushing dust off her hands, and gazed up again. Somewhere out there, beyond the black ocean of stars, her past was buried. The people she lost, the things she never said, the promises she couldn't keep. She wondered what the Valkor would think of her now, living like a ghost in a scrapyard, hiding from the stars. "Korin," she whispered, without meaning to. The name slipped out like a secret. "You'd laugh at me now." The wind answered with silence. Sarah climbed down the ladder and stepped back into her workshop. The night outside was still, but in the distance, high above the dunes, the stars shimmered again, brighter this time. For a moment, the light looked like a falling ember. Then another, and another. She frowned. That's not a meteor shower. Somewhere deep inside her, an old instinct stirred, an old soldier's pulse she thought had died long ago. Something was falling from the sky. And for the first time in years, Sarah Reeves felt the stars calling her name again. The night sky was on fire. Sarah Reeves stood outside her hangar, staring at the streak of burning light tearing through the clouds. The air trembled as the object roared overhead, glowing brighter with every passing second. It wasn't a meteor. She could tell by the way it moved, too steady, too controlled. It was a ship. Then came the crash. A thunderous boom echoed across the desert as the light vanished behind a ridge, followed by a wave of dust and a flash that turned the horizon white. The ground beneath her boots shook. Sarah didn't think. She moved. Within minutes, she had grabbed her old rifle from the wall, checked the charge pack, and loaded her desert crawler. The engines coughed to life, spitting out smoke as she gunned it toward the ridge. She didn't know why she was doing it. Maybe it was the soldier still buried inside her bones, or maybe it was something else. A pull she couldn't explain. All she knew was that something had fallen from the sky, and she couldn't look away. The desert was dark except for the faint red glow in the distance. As she drew closer, the wind carried the smell of scorched metal and burned sand. Her headlights cut through the smoke, revealing twisted wreckage half buried in the dunes. It was a small ship, Valcor design. Sarah's heart skipped. She hadn't seen one since the war. The sight of those black angular plates and glowing energy veins sent a chill through her chest. She parked the crawler, grabbed her rifle, and approached slowly. The heat still radiated from the hull, making the air shimmer. One side of the ship was torn open like a wound, sparks crackling in the dark. Inside, something moved. Her breath caught. She raised her weapon, taking careful steps forward. The figure inside was massive, covered in cracked black armor. For a moment, she thought it was a corpse until it breathed. She froze. Then the figure turned its head toward her, and a faint golden light flickered behind the cracked visor. A deep, familiar voice echoed through the damaged speaker. "Reeves?" Her rifle slipped from her hands and hit the sand. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. She stepped closer, staring at the armor. The patterns etched into the chest plate, the mark of the 7th Joint Battalion. Her battalion, the same sigil she once painted with her own hands. Her lips trembled. "Corin?" The alien warrior let out a low sound, half a growl, half a sigh. "You remember." Sarah dropped to her knees beside him, reaching for the release clasp on his helmet. The metal hissed as it came loose. Beneath it was the face she remembered, scarred, scaled, with faintly glowing lines running along the temples and jaw. His eyes were still the same molten gold, but he looked older, worn. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The last time she saw him, he was dying, burning under plasma fire while she screamed for medics who never came. "How?" she whispered. "How are you alive?" Corin's voice was weak but steady. "I do not know. The battle took me. Then there was nothing, darkness, cold. And then I woke. I followed the echo." "The echo?" she repeated. He nodded slowly. "The bond between warriors who saved one another. It does not die. It called to me. I followed it across the stars. It led me here to you." Her chest tightened. "You followed me?" "I searched for you," he said. "Even when time forgot us." Sarah shook her head, tears burning in her eyes. "You're insane. You were gone for 5 years, Corin. You should be dead." He gave a small, tired smile, the kind only the Valcor could give, with their eyes softening instead of their mouths. "I was, but destiny does not let its chosen rest." She didn't know what to say. Her hands were shaking as she pressed them against his armor, feeling the faint warmth beneath. He was real, alive, breathing. For a long time they just stared at each other, the desert wind howling outside the wreck. The storm clouds were gathering and the air smelled like rain. "Come on," she said finally, wiping her eyes. "We need to get you out of here before the storm hits." He didn't argue. He tried to stand but stumbled. Sarah slipped under his arm, struggling to support his weight. He was heavy, like lifting a mountain, but somehow she managed. As they walked back to the crawler, lightning cracked across the sky. The light flashed over the sand, painting them both in silver and gold. For the first time in years, Sarah felt something stir in her chest, a warmth she thought the war had stolen forever. When they reached her hangar, she helped him lie down near the workshop fire. His armor still smoked from the crash. She sat beside him, watching the golden light in his eyes flicker weakly. "Rest," she said softly. "You're safe now." He looked at her for a long moment before whispering, "I found you, Reeves. The echo never lies." Sarah didn't understand what that meant. Not yet. But as the rain began to fall outside, She realized one thing with absolute certainty. Her past had just fallen from the sky. And it was alive. The storm howled outside the hangar, rain hammering against the metal roof. The sound filled the air like distant drums of war. Inside, Sarah Reeves worked in silence, her hands steady, though her heart was not. Corin lay on a makeshift bed she had built out of storage crates and blankets. His armor was still cracked, black metal streaked with faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Every time she looked at him, she half expected him to vanish, like a dream dissolving when the morning light hits. But he didn't vanish. He breathed. He lived. Sarah cleaned the burn marks on his armor with a damp cloth, the smell of metal and ozone thick around her. "You're lucky I found you," she muttered, trying to sound casual, though her voice trembled slightly. "Another few hours in that wreck and you'd have cooked inside your suit." Corin's golden eyes blinked open. "It was not luck," he said quietly. "It was the echo." She rolled her eyes, though she couldn't hide a small smile. "You keep saying that like it explains everything." He tilted his head slightly. "For us it does. The echo is a bond, two souls joined by life and death. It is rare even among my kind. It cannot be broken." Sarah looked away. The idea unsettled her. "We were soldiers, Corin. That's all. You saved me once. I saved you a few times. It doesn't mean we're connected by destiny or whatever." He watched her in silence for a long moment before saying, "You do not believe in destiny?" She sighed and leaned back against the wall. "I used to believe in orders. In missions. In survival, destiny. That's a word for people who can afford to dream." Outside, thunder rolled. Corin's deep voice softened. "Then perhaps the universe dreams for you." Sarah didn't reply. She busied herself with removing the last piece of damaged armor from his arm, revealing the alien skin beneath. Dark gray, faintly scaled, warm to the touch. Scars lined his forearm, some fresh, some old. She recognized one near his wrist. She had seen that scar form years ago when a Valcor blade exploded in his hand. "Still have that," she said quietly. "Guess time didn't heal everything." He smiled again, eyes glimmering faintly. "Some wounds are meant to stay. They remind us we once survived." That line hit her harder than she expected. She swallowed, feeling the weight of her own invisible scars. They fell into silence again. The storm raged on, but inside the air was calm, heavy, but calm. Hours passed. Sarah brewed coffee for herself, and a glowing liquid for him that she mixed from the ship's emergency rations. It smelled like metal and earth. He drank it without complaint. As she sat across from him, she found herself studying him. His armor, though broken, still carried the symbols of the old alliance, the same markings that once stood for unity between humans and Valcor. Seeing them again stirred something deep in her chest. "You shouldn't have come back," she said finally. "The galaxy's different now. The war's over. People barely remember what we fought for." Corin looked toward the rain-smeared window. "The galaxy may forget, but I do not." "Why?" she asked softly. "Why me? Why find me after all these years?" He turned to face her fully, the gold in his eyes glowing brighter for a moment. "Because you kept your promise," her brow furrowed. "What promise?" "In the last battle," he said slowly, "you told me that if I fell, you would not let my name be forgotten." Sarah froze. She remembered now. Those were her exact words, shouted over the comms while his ship burned. "You won't die in silence, Corin. I'll remember you." She hadn't thought he'd heard her. But he had. He placed one massive hand over his chest. "Among my kind, memory is sacred. To be remembered is to live. You kept me alive, Reeves, even when I was gone." Her throat tightened. "That's not possible." "It is," he said simply. "The echo is proof." Sarah looked at him for a long time, searching for something to say, but nothing came. Her heart felt too heavy for words. Finally, she stood. "You should rest." "You've been through hell, and you?" he asked. She gave a small, tired smile. "I live there." As she turned off the lights and walked toward her room, she glanced back one last time. Corin was still watching her, golden eyes glowing in the dim light like a beacon. For a moment, she didn't see a warrior or a ghost from her past. She saw something else entirely, something that made her heart ache and her hands tremble. Maybe destiny wasn't such a foolish word after all. Outside, the storm began to fade. The stars returned, quiet, distant, and endless. And for the first time in years, Sarah Reeves didn't feel alone beneath them. The next morning was calm. The storm had passed, leaving the desert washed clean and shining under a pale orange sun. The air smelled of wet dust and new beginnings. Sarah Reeves stood outside the hangar, hands on her hips, watching the light roll across the dunes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the weight of silence pressing down on her. The world felt alive again. Inside, Corrin was awake. She found him standing near the workbench, his large form still a little unsteady but strong enough to move. The black armor he wore had been repaired in patches, the cracks now sealed with dull silver lines of fusion metal. He looked like a statue that had been broken and carefully pieced back together. "You shouldn't be walking yet," Sarah said, folding her arms. Corrin looked up, golden eyes calm. "The body heals when the spirit wills it," she smiled faintly. "You and your warrior sayings, guess those never change." He tilted his head, observing her. "And you, Reeves? Do you still run from what hurts you?" Her smile faded. "You've been awake for 5 minutes and already trying to dig into my soul?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said enough. Sarah sighed and turned to the table, pretending to study the parts she'd laid out for his armor repair. "You almost died out there," she said. "If I hadn't found you, you would have." He interrupted softly. She frowned. "What?" "You would have found me," he repeated. "Because the echo guided us. It always does." She shook her head, laughing under her breath. "You really believe in that thing, don't you?" Corrin's voice deepened, quiet but firm. "It is not belief. It is truth. When I was lost in the void, I heard your voice. It pulled me back." Sarah froze, her back still to him. Her hands tightened around the tool she was holding. "My voice?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he said. "Not words. Just warmth. A sound that reminded me why I still had to live." She swallowed hard. "That's impossible, perhaps," he said gently. "But I'm here." For a long time, neither spoke. The hum of machinery filled the silence between them. Finally, Sarah turned around, her face hard but her eyes soft. "You talk like you came back from death." Corrin nodded once. "Perhaps I did." She studied him carefully. His armor, his scars, the faint tremor in his voice. There was something different about him now. Not just the damage from battle, but something deeper. Like he had left a part of himself in that void he spoke of. "You're not the same," she said quietly. He met her gaze. "Nor are you." That stung more than she expected. She turned away again, focusing on the metal pieces scattered across the table. "The war changed everyone," she said. "But some of us stopped fighting. Some of us had to." Corrin walked closer, his heavy footsteps echoing softly on the floor. "And yet you still carry the weapon on your wall," he said. "Still polish it when the storms come." Her head snapped up. "You went through my things?" He didn't move. I looked. I remembered. "You never stopped being a soldier, Reeves. You just stopped believing you were one." She felt heat rise in her chest, anger, sadness, guilt. "I stopped because I had to survive," she said sharply. "Because I lost everything that mattered. Because I watched you die." The words broke out before she could stop them. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. Corrin's expression softened. He lowered his head slightly. "Then I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I did not mean to be a ghost that hurts you." Sarah pressed a hand to her forehead, breathing shakily. It's not that," she said. "It's just, you're part of a life I buried. And now you're standing here alive, talking about destiny and bonds like the universe hasn't moved on." He took another step closer. "And you?" She looked up at him, eyes wet. "I don't know if I ever did." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sunlight streamed through the cracked ceiling, catching the faint gold in his eyes. Then, slowly, he reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. Gentle, steady, warm. "I did not come to drag you into the past," he said. "I came because the future called your name." Her breath caught. The words felt heavy and real, like something she had been waiting to hear but didn't know she needed. She looked into his eyes. Ancient, patient, full of strange sadness, and whispered, "You really think there's a future for people like us?" He nodded. "If we build it." For the first time since the war, Sarah didn't look away. Outside, the last of the storm clouds drifted away, revealing a sky full of sunlight and promise. And in that quiet hangar on the edge of the desert, 2 soldiers, one human, one alien, stood side by side, not as ghosts of the past, but as survivors trying to remember how to live again. The peace did not last long. It began with a sound, soft at first like a hum in the air. Sarah Reeves was outside, tightening the solar cables near the hangar wall when she heard it. A faint vibration, a deep rumble. Her instincts reacted before her mind did. She straightened slowly, scanning the horizon. The sky was bright and cloudless, but something shimmered faintly near the edge of the dunes. A glint of metal, then another. Her stomach tightened. She ran back inside. "Corin!" she called, her voice sharp. The Valcor warrior looked up from where he was working, repairing one of his armor plates. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She just pointed toward the radar screen. 3 red dots had appeared on the display, moving fast, closing in from orbit. "Ships," she said quietly. "Small ones. Raiders, maybe scavengers." Corin moved closer, his gold eyes narrowing. "They follow the scent of war." "They have come for the wreck," Sarah cursed under her breath. "Damn it. I should have buried the crash site deeper." He turned to her, calm but firm. "How long until they arrive?" "Minutes," she said. "Maybe less." Without another word, Corin reached for his repaired armor and began strapping it on. The black plates locked into place with sharp clicks, faint gold energy running through the seams. Sarah grabbed her rifle from the wall. Her hands were steady, but her heart was pounding hard enough to feel in her throat. She hadn't held a weapon like this in years. Corin looked at her. "You do not have to fight." She gave him a quick, humorless smile. "You think I'm going to hide while strangers burn my home?" He inclined his head slightly. "Then we stand together." The words carried weight, old, familiar, and almost comforting. They moved fast. Sarah locked the hangar doors, sealed the energy shields, and climbed to the roof with her scope. From there, she could see the dust trails forming in the distance. 3 raider craft, low-flying, armored, painted in black and rust. Human scavengers. They were after the Valcor ship, no doubt. Alien tech like that was priceless on the black market. The ship circled once before landing. Men spilled out, their faces hidden behind tinted visors. Sarah counted 8. All armed. Corin stood below, a dark figure in gleaming armor. He held no gun, only a long Valcor blade that glowed faintly along its edges. The raiders saw him and laughed. "Hey, look at that," one shouted. "A walking fortune. That armor'll fetch 1,000 credits easy." Corin did not move. His deep voice carried easily across the sand. "Leave now and you will live," the leader grinned. "That a threat, alien?" Corin's eyes glowed brighter. A warning. They didn't listen. They raised their weapons. Sarah saw the first muzzle flash. Her instincts took over. She fired. The first raider dropped before he even finished shouting. The others ducked for cover, but Corin was already moving, faster than she remembered. His blade cutting through air and metal with terrifying grace. The desert erupted into chaos. Shouts. Plasma fire. The hum of energy blades clashing. Sarah fired from above, every shot precise, covering his flanks just like she used to. It felt like muscle memory, like time had folded back to the war days. She saw Corin take down 2 men in one sweeping strike. His armor flared gold with every impact. A raider crept toward the hangar's side door. Sarah turned her rifle and fired, the shot grazing his arm. But another blast came from behind her. She ducked, the roof shaking. She rolled to the side, heart hammering, and returned fire. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Below, Corin finished the last of them with a final swing. The blade's glow faded. Silence fell. Only the wind moved now, sweeping over the fallen raiders and scattering dust across the sand. Sarah climbed down, breathing hard. Her arm was bleeding from a sharp cut, though she hadn't even noticed it until now. Corin turned quickly, eyes wide. "You are wounded." "It's nothing," she said, pressing a hand over it. "Just a scratch." He moved closer, his voice heavy with concern. "Do not fade," she gave a shaky laugh. "Relax, I'm not dying." Still, he knelt beside her, examining the wound with surprising gentleness for someone so large. His armor was scorched and cracked again, but he didn't seem to care. When the silence settled, Sarah finally looked around at the burning raider ships. The smell of smoke and ash filled the air. She exhaled slowly. "Guess peace doesn't last long for people like us." Corin looked at her, his voice calm but firm. "Peace is not given, Reeves. It is built and defended." Their eyes met. The faint gold in his eyes flickered like a heartbeat. And for a moment, despite the blood, the smoke, and the fire around them, Sarah Reeves felt something powerful, something she hadn't felt since the war. Not fear. Not sorrow. Purpose. The fires from the raider ships burned long into the night. Their orange glow flickered across the hangar walls, painting everything in shades of memory and smoke. Sarah Reeves sat on the floor beside the workbench, her arm wrapped in bandages, staring at the flames through the open door. She had fought again. After years of silence, she had killed again. And though her body ached, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Alive. Corin stood near the doorway, silent as stone, his armor still marked with ash and blood. He was watching the horizon where the stars met the endless desert. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the soft crackle of fire and the low hum of his armor as it powered down. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "We can't stay here." Corin turned slightly, his golden eyes meeting hers. "They will come again," she nodded. "The raiders, the scavengers. Maybe worse. They'll know something valuable crashed here." He walked closer, the floor creaking under his heavy steps. "There is a place where they cannot reach us. The Valcor homeworld. My people would welcome you." Sarah looked up sharply. "Your homeworld?" He nodded slowly. "When I awoke from the void, I sent a signal. They know I live. They sent word back if the echo was true, if you still lived, I was to bring you to them." Her heart skipped. "Bring me, why?" Corin's eyes softened. "Because the bond we share, the echo, is sacred to the Valcor. No human has ever carried it. They believe it is a sign of destiny, of unity between our kinds." Sarah stared at him, speechless. The words felt heavy, unreal. "Destiny," she repeated quietly. "You think this is destiny?" "I do not think," he said. "I know." She stood up, brushing the dust from her hands, her voice low but steady. "Corin, I'm not some chosen one. I'm just a mechanic who got tired of war. I fix things now." "I don't—" "You fixed me," he interrupted gently. "You found what the void tried to destroy." She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. He wasn't wrong. He continued. "The Valcor believe the echo connects hearts beyond time, beyond worlds. You felt it too, did you not?" Sarah hesitated. The truth pressed against her chest. Yes. She had felt it. That strange warmth when he spoke. That pull that told her he was close before she even knew. The same pulse that had drawn her to the crash site in the first place. But saying it aloud felt like stepping off a cliff. "I don't know what I felt," she said finally. "Maybe I'm just not ready to believe in magic." Corin's voice lowered. "It is not magic. It is life recognizing itself." The words made her throat tighten. She turned away, staring at the fires outside. "If I went with you, what then?" "I'm human, Corin. Your people might not want me there." "They will," he said softly. "Because I do." The simplicity of that answer broke something inside her. She turned to face him. "And if I say no?" His golden eyes dimmed slightly. "Then I stay." Sarah blinked. "You'd stay, here? On this lonely rock?" He nodded once. "The echo does not command. It follows. If your path is here, then so is mine." For a long time she just looked at him, this alien warrior who had crossed light years and death itself to find her. His armor was cracked, his voice quiet, but his presence filled the entire hangar like a heartbeat she could feel in her bones. "Corin," she whispered, "you could have had peace back home." He smiled with his eyes. "Peace is where you are." Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. She looked away quickly, her voice trembling. "You're impossible, you know that?" "I am persistent," he said gently. "And patient." A small laugh escaped her lips, shaky and wet. "Persistent is one word for it." They stood in silence after that, both staring at the burning wrecks fading into ash. Above them, the stars glowed softly, endless and familiar. Finally, Sarah whispered, "Maybe I'll think about it." Corin inclined his head slowly. "Then I will wait," she smiled faintly. "You're really not going anywhere, are you?" He looked toward the sky, then back at her. "Not unless you do." The night grew quieter, and the fires dimmed until only embers remained. Sarah Reeves sat beside Corin under the open sky, the scent of smoke fading, the wind gentle against her face. She didn't know where her path led, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid to find out. Somewhere in her chest, beneath the scars and silence, she felt it again, the faint, steady rhythm of the echo, and it whispered one truth she could no longer deny. She was no longer alone. The next morning arrived quietly. The desert looked peaceful again, soft gold light stretching across the dunes. the air cool and calm after the chaos of the night before. But inside Sarah Reeves's heart, a storm still lingered. She hadn't slept much. Her mind kept circling the same thought: go or stay. Corcoran had asked her to leave Earth, to go with him across the stars to a place she couldn't even imagine. The Valcor homeworld. Part of her wanted to laugh at the idea. She was just a woman with oil-stained hands and a worn-out hangar in the middle of nowhere. What business did she have walking among alien stars? And yet, another part of her, deeper and quieter, whispered, yes. She stepped outside. The morning wind brushed against her hair, carrying the faint smell of burned metal from the raider ships. The desert stretched endlessly before her, but somehow it didn't feel so empty anymore. Corcoran was already there, standing beside the half-buried wreck of his old ship. The sun glinted off the broken metal and the golden lines of his armor. He was holding something, a small device that hummed faintly, glowing with blue light. Sarah walked closer. What's that? He looked up. A beacon. My people will follow it to find us. Her stomach tightened. So, you've already decided then? He tilted his head slightly. The choice was never mine alone. Sarah folded her arms, staring at the desert. You really think your people will accept me? A human? Corcoran's voice was steady, calm. You are more than human to me. The Echo does not choose by race or world. It chooses by heart. His words made her chest ache in a way she didn't expect. And what if I can't fit in there? She whispered. What if I can't breathe your air, can't live your way? Corcoran turned to face her fully now. His golden eyes glowed softly in the sunlight. Then I will build you a world where you can. Sarah looked at him, speechless. There was no pride or arrogance in his voice, just truth. Pure and steady. She felt tears sting her eyes. You make it sound so easy. It is not easy, he said. It is worth it. For a long time, neither of them moved. The desert wind howled softly around them, lifting grains of sand like tiny sparks in the air. Then, somewhere deep inside the wreckage, a faint hum echoed. Sarah turned sharply. What was that? Corcoran looked toward the sound, his expression unreadable. The ship remembers. She feels the call of home. Sarah's heart thudded. You mean it still works? He nodded once. Enough to fly. They stood there for a long moment, staring at the half-buried alien ship that had brought him back into her life. The decision hung between them, heavy and electric. Finally, Sarah took a deep breath. Corcoran, when I found you, I thought I was just helping some lost soldier. I didn't think it would mean this. He stepped closer, his voice soft but sure. And I thought I had no purpose left. Then you gave me one. Their eyes met. She saw the faint reflection of herself in his golden gaze. The tired mechanic, the broken survivor, the human who had learned to care again. All right, she whispered. Let's do it. His eyes brightened like twin suns. You mean? Yes, she said, smiling through the tears that had finally fallen. Let's go home. For the first time, Sarah saw him truly smile. Not the quiet calm of a warrior, but something warmer, deeper, almost human. They spent the rest of the day repairing the ship together. Sarah worked with her hands, sealing panels, checking circuits, connecting wires. Corcoran handled the system she couldn't understand, his movements graceful and precise. The sun dipped low, painting the world in gold and crimson. When the engines finally roared to life, the sound was deep and powerful, like the heart of the desert itself was awakening. Sarah stood at the base of the ramp, looking back one last time. The hangar, the quiet dunes, the place where she had hidden from the world. It all looked smaller now. Corcoran extended his hand. Ready? She nodded, taking his hand. His palm was warm, solid, familiar. As the ramp closed and the ship began to lift, Sarah felt the pull in her chest again, the same pulse that had led her to him years ago. The Echo. Outside, the desert wind swirled, carrying the last traces of smoke and dust into the sky. Inside the cockpit, the stars came alive on the screen, endless and bright. Sarah looked at them, her heart pounding. It's beautiful, she whispered. Corcoran's voice was soft beside her. You have not yet seen beauty, but you will. The ship climbed higher, breaking through the atmosphere. The blue sky faded into black, and the first stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across eternity. For a moment, Sarah closed her eyes. She could almost feel the hum of the universe, the same rhythm as her heartbeat, the same warmth as his presence beside her. The echo was alive. And for the first time since the war, Sarah Reeves didn't feel like a survivor. She felt like she was home.